live now. It's a 15-minute interlude that you guys had to go do something else. So let's see how we are. See how we're looking. It'll take a second for it to fire up. We are here at the Dryden with Phil Hagerman. So waiting for the comments. That'll be the I can't hear you. You know, why are you so handsome? I said,
They'll be talking to you or Marcus, right?
I don't know about that. I don't know. So there's Robin. All right. Oh, Adrian Walker says, "What's up, Phil?"
Hey, Adrian.
So yeah, so we're live here. So I'm going to run this intro and then we'll get into it. My daughter does all.
I love it.
All the,
Fantastic.
all the graphics and stuff. So.
It's all about, quality.
All right, here we are at the Dryden with Phil Hagerman. This is your building, yours, and you are the man here,
Yeah.
so to speak, and well, more than so to speak, I would say. So we appreciate you doing this so much and lending us your space this evening to do this. So
Glad to have you here. We're excited to be talking.
It's we met. I know you and Marcus have known each other for a long time.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, a little while.
Some good fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we met at Justin's place, the Corner Bar.
Yeah.
And I had no idea who you were.
Yeah.
And you're a very unassuming person.
Thanks.
And it was after I talked to somebody, oh, that's Phil Hagerman. He's this, and this. I was like, I had no idea because you're a very very kind, unassuming person. You've always been very nice to me.
I was up there listening to great music, and I loved it. I love when I listen to you.
There's always that. There's always that.
There is.
So, how did you two meet? Like, how did just?
Yeah, partly from the building. Right?
Yeah,
I think maybe first pass, right? At
Yeah, first
Fayersville?
pass. It was a random Thursday evening, and it was the opening of the Ferris wheel building. So, on a whim, a mutual friend of ours and the person that runs the building, she's like, "Hey, Marcus, I need you to do something for me. I need you to go up and say a couple of words." I'm like, "All right, I can do that." And went up, said a couple of things, and then, Phil came in behind and stole the show, of course. And after that, the rest is history, and I can say publicly and privately that, Phil has become one of my great, great, great friends and a mentor of sorts and all sorts, and just a champion for Flint. And, for a person that makes the commitment and the dedication to building and giving back and handing back to the community itself, to encourage entrepreneurship, to encourage folks to do their best and encourage people to go, to that higher level. He is the poster child for all of that. So, he didn't pay me that much to say that.
I think, because I believe I may have played did you use a microphone at the grand opening of the fair?
I think you were at that event, my friend.
I'm pretty sure I played because honestly, Heather was one of the people for me that got me involved. I lived by her father, and so it's been one of those serendipitous things to be here and to. All these things, they just kind of keep falling into place, and we were kind of talking about it before. You were talking about having a boss and people not being able to wrap their mind around not having a boss.
Yeah.
And then that's an interesting thing, but it's been a fascinating experience for me here in Flint to be and to meet guys like you and your like Marcus was saying, your support of entrepreneurship is just that's what you're really about.
Well, thanks, and it's interesting, you talk about the Ferris wheel, because it's really, we've tried to create a center for entrepreneurship in Flint, but that was an exciting night for me too, Marcus.
Yeah.
Besides meeting a great true friend, the whole idea of having, kind of your passion for the city kind of cross over with your passion for life, and we had 200-300 people in the building at that time. We had cool musicians playing, we had city leaders, a governor. It was a lot of fun, and for us, with some of the work we'd done downtown to kick that kind of event off in a building that had been dark for 36 years in the city of Flint was pretty powerful. And hopefully we keep the lights rolling and and the city keeps growing.
Ferris wheel building and what has been done inside of that space is so dramatic, because being able to be a business owner and then also being able to come in and rent space, good space, viable space, at those prices, you just can't beat it. You wouldn't be able to go anywhere in any other city to be able to make that happen. But here in Flint, we have it, and it's available because of, this man.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's one thing that's interesting is people that haven't been in the building, it's a pretty unique ecosystem, right? We've got some for-profit businesses on the lower level, like Foster's, that are bringing people in Flint Prints, and for the first time again in 20 years, you can get business cards printed in downtown Flint, right, in the Ferris wheel. And then it's a not-for-profit for 100K Ventures. You're commenting about entrepreneurship, Jason, where we've got a center for entrepreneurship that creates a new model of relieving innovators from the entrepreneurial burden. And then the upper floors of it are a co-working space. And that day that we opened it up, we only opened the first 3 floors, and 30 businesses were live in the building that day we opened. And now there's about 55 in there. But it was a pretty exciting time for us.
Yeah.
And because what brought me here was I started taking classes at U of M Flint, and when I started coming here, there was literally almost nothing. It did look like a war-torn city in a lot of ways. With this, I believe this building was still vacant at the time. The Ferris wheel was still vacant. The Culinary Arts School was vacant. Elga was vacant. There were so many buildings. The hotel was,
and you shoot baskets on on the 4 corners here because there was no traffic.
Yeah, I remember because I moved into the Durant, and I would look out over the street on a Friday night, and it would be moderately busy, but the most visitors I would see were people playing Pokemon walking around. But that was it. But then it's like on a Friday or a Saturday, I came down here Friday, and it looked like it was awesome to see. It was so exciting to see the amount of people down here, and that's really got to touch you, though. That's really got to make you feel proud that you have been such a facilitator of that.
Well, I've been in this community my whole life, and so, again, I tell stories about coming down to Smith Bridgeman with my mother, in the 60s, and, watching The Sound of Music at the Capitol Theater in 65, I think, when it first came out. And so, I had a lot of personal history in the city. I've had a lot of really great business history, for my company, Diplomat, my pharmacy business. It was just a phenomenal place to raise a family and have a business. And like a lot of cities in the middle of America, we struggled for a long time. Again, I wasn't as involved in the city in the early 2000s, but people tell me, Jason, about how barren the streets were and about how many open storefronts there were. And so it's really exciting to see, an escalation over the last 10 years. And clearly, we're challenged with COVID like everybody else is, but the reality is it hasn't slowed anybody down here. The heart and soul of this city is still moving.
Well, I think that part of that is a testament, though, to what the city's been through. It's really hard to throw a lot at this city and say, hey, we're going to kick you. It's like, well, we've not me. I moved here when it was on its way up, in a sense. There wasn't a ton here, but at the same time, I wasn't here weathering the really hard times. But to see the amount of people, and I often tell young families that I know, I'm like, this is the place. This is the place you want to be. The houses are inexpensive. The downtown is accessible. It's safe. It's a wonderful place. For me, I love it. I love everything about it.
Well, it's great to be on a show like this and be able to talk about that, because we still don't have that recognition across the country and even across the community. You get out into some of the suburbs around us still, and it's exciting for me to see it change. But 5 or 10 years ago, if you lived south of Flint, then when you wanted to go go out to dinner, you went to Ann Arbor, or you went to Brighton, or you went to Birmingham, and now there's restaurants in this city that people are coming to. It's exciting.
And I enjoy being able to facilitate that, because
Yeah.
I went live from many of the places, even from the roof of the Ferris wheel.
That's right,
But to see the people come here, because I'm from Clarkston and never came here. It was not a destination.
Well, I'll tell you a story that I always share with my son, who's a freshman at U of M Flint. I told him when I was a freshman at U of M Flint, there wasn't one place down here after 7 o'clock getting out of class that I could go to have a meal, meet up with my friends, do whatever. Now he has the availability and the option to go to a number of places that are just right here on this strip. Also, he has the availability to come into a building like the Ferris wheel and be able to learn from so many other co-creators here in the area. And I was like, son, you have some great options, very different from your dad, still great for me still, but just to have that availability here, and it's just such a difference. It's pretty dramatic.
But Marcus, it's interesting to me too, because I know some people that have worked with me here before that are probably 20 years older than you are. We won't make you give your young age out on it.
So
online.
they're 45, you're saying?
Yeah, that's right.
I'm 74.
Yeah, but I know people that were in school here 15 or 20 years before you were, and Flint is on its way back, but it's still not where it was then. Back then, there were twice as many opportunities as there are now. So we went from a huge amount of opportunities to no opportunities for you, and now, where your son's out there, we're coming back.
Yeah.
Job's not done yet, but we're coming back.
Back then, though, would it be fair to say that those opportunities would have been more automotive-related, GM-related, whereas now you could say a place, say, like the Ferris wheel, there's a lot of opportunities that are more tech-related, more growth-related, I guess?
Yeah, I think the city, and really all cities, kind of in the Midwest, are seeking additional diversity in the business opportunities they offer. But when you look back at General Motors in that day, the companies and the opportunities downtown, the restaurants, the bars and things, they didn't care what economy and what company it was or what part of the industry it was. They just cared that there were people here and it was vibrant, right? And now I do think that, there's more healthcare downtown, there's more entrepreneurship, and yet we're working hard downtown to try and create, manufacturing again in the Midwest, right? There's opportunities there too.
Yeah, 100%. Now, you brought up something, and to kind of segue into more your life, you brought up the opportunities that your son and my daughter, to be in a place where they can come in here and receive mentorship. Now, you and your dad started Diplomat.
Yes.
Was it mostly you, and he said, I'll come with you for a little bit, or was it, hey, son, let's do this, and did he kind of?
Started out all dad. I'll tell you a story. I was in college, and I maybe shouldn't give that year either, although I guess I will. It was 1975, it's been a few years. And I was 2 weeks from graduating and didn't really have a job because my dad was part of a small group of 4 pharmacies, and 1975 was a significant economic downturn, and they really didn't have a job for me. And my dad called me 2 weeks before I got out of college and said, son, I sold the company. And I go, what? And he goes, but I just bought it back. And I said, Dad, I have no idea what you're talking about. And he said, well, I swapped my shares of the 4 stores, and I bought one, so get your butt out of school and come help me. And that's how Diplomat started.
So in his mind, it never worked for anybody.
Well, I think in his mind, it was an opportunity for me. All I ever really wanted to do in life was, I kind of wanted to be a pharmacist. I wanted to work with my dad. It was never driven down me. It was never forced on me. I just saw my dad do what he loved and make a good life out of it, and I just always wanted to do that. I'm not quite sure why now, looking back, but I always did. And so I always hoped I'd have the opportunity to work with him, and when I got out of college, it immediately fell into our lap, and that was Diplomat. We were a tiny little pharmacy. We were doing just a little bit of business. The store had only been open a year or so, and again, it wasn't very busy, and we put our head down and worked hard, and good things happened.
So was he your mentor with the business aspect, or did you run with that? Did it growing?
You know, it was a lot of things. My dad was a great people person. You know, my dad's main comment at Diplomat was take good care of people and the rest will fall into place, right? And part of it, maybe my job was to figure out how to get the rest to fall into place, right? Dad took great care of people. He was a good businessman. He had good business sense. I was probably a little more aggressive, a little more entrepreneurial, always looking for the next thing, always trying to figure out what was around the next corner. And so we made a pretty good combination. Dad kept me grounded, you know, not chasing too many wild paths. You know how young, 24, 25-year-old bucks are. We think we want to grab the whole world.
Yeah.
That helped me find the right opportunities and gave me enough rope to find opportunities. So it's a really good combination. We worked side by side for, I think, the first 6 or 8 years before we started hiring other people, one of whom was my sister.
Oh, wow. Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she was our business partner, right? After we'd been there 6 to 8 years, and the company was growing, she was looking to move back into Genesee County, and she was a pharmacist, and the next thing you know, I got Dad and his son and his daughter working together.
Yeah, this has been a theme. I spoke to somebody today, and we were talking about the family unit in a sense, whatever that is. How important was that to your success? Were you guys a close family? I mean, obviously, it sounds like you and your dad were close.
We were all close. Kids, again, I'm blessed. I have 3 brothers and a sister, and we were all close. We got 5 kids in a 10-year period of time, so we're close enough in age. My sister and I were only a year apart in school, so we were really tight. But I had 3 brothers that were down below me, and the thing was for us is we took family vacations. We'd go up to a little cottage on Lake Huron in the summer. We'd go skiing somewhere in the winter, and I think that time away from home and that bonding time was good. I still vacation with my whole family.
Oh,
right?
Wow. Yeah, that's cool. That's a cool thing, a cool fact. I think that it attributes to the success of people. Where I think a lot of people get bogged down on the self-worth aspect of it, where they're not set up, I guess, to have the confidence to go out and do something like that and to take it to that next level.
I got to give my parents a lot of credit. I was in the right position to be able to do that. I was able to go to a pharmacy school that both taught me, both pharmacy skills, but also parents allowed me to grow a little bit and make some good choices and plenty of bad choices. I bet the 2 of you made a bad choice or 2 in your time.
Maybe one.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
once, right? Once or twice.
Maybe 1 million.
Yeah, maybe 1 million. And I probably made 1,000,001, but I'm always kind of, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and sometimes if you take 3 steps back, you got to take 4 steps forward the next time. So again, maybe I got taught this by my dad, but I think your life's work is about good work over time. It's not about what you do in any single moment. And, I've been around a long time. I've had a lot of time to keep trying to do good work and got some time left.
That's one of the things I constantly beat the drum to my daughter is just to, if you just keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Keep moving forward. Keep moving forward. And I keep telling her, work for yourself. Work for yourself.
Yeah.
It goes back to one of our many conversations that we've had, where I can say without a doubt, Phil has put that right into me. It's like, hey, a couple steps back, that's okay. 3 forward, 4 back. 5 forward, 5 back, 10 forward. Doesn't matter what it is. You got to keep on moving, and that book of work over time is the big qualifier for success. And also outside of that, just the story itself of how you went from one location to just bananas explosion is unreal. It's unreal.
And the interesting part about that, Marcus, is if you'd asked me back then what life would look like for me to end up, I would have never written any of that down, right? I would have never been able to,
That's what we were talking about right before
understand it in any way where that could have happened. Somebody told me at one point that I had told them I wish the company would be worth X someday, right? And it ended up being worth maybe, I don't know if it was 100 times that or what. It doesn't matter about the money, but the point is you just don't always know where life's going to take you. But if you're trying to get 1 step forward and you're trying to think about the positive aspects of things, doors open, right? And one of my sayings all the time was, doors open all around you, but you got to be able to see them, right? You got to be able to see that window of opportunity, right? You got to see that open door, and then you got to be afraid not to figure out how to get through it.
Yeah.
And being prepared to go through it, because sometimes if that door may open and you're not ready for it.
Yeah.
But so with that being said, what role did failure play in your early days? Did you ever get really discouraged where you said, okay, maybe this isn't the path, or did you always say, nope, it's working?
No, I absolutely, made, kind of bad business choices at Diplomat, other things too. Some people remember the Whirly Ball in Flint, for example. I owned the Whirly Ball building in business in Flint. I went and played this game, and it was just this amazing, exciting thing to do.
Isn't that the bumper cars?
Yeah, bumper cars with, we call it like a combination of basketball and high-low on bumper cars, or high-low on bumper cars. But I will tell you, when I built that building and built that business, the first year we did great, and I came to realize over the next few years that the community of Flint and Genesee County wasn't large enough to support that business. My first year was my best year. It was all new, brand new, everybody tried it, but then there weren't enough people to come back on a regular basis, and so it was a real struggle. And, in some ways, that might have been one of the biggest catalysts for Diplomat. I'd opened a new, I was pretty transparent about this stuff. I'd opened a new building. It wasn't doing really well. My old business was my heart and soul. I'm like, I better work pretty darn hard on that to make sure that can help support this new building, a new business that isn't doing very well. I doubled down my effort at Diplomat. We had one of the best years we ever had. And ultimately, with Whirly Ball, we kind of found a path to keep the building running for about 6 or 8 years, but it was never really exciting for what we wanted, but we helped create enough energy in the corner, we eventually sold it. We eventually sold the real estate, and that worked out well. But that kind of loss of momentum at that business made me realize I needed to really double down on my core business to make sure that I had a financial path forward if that business didn't do well. Which was Diplomat. And frankly, that extra effort at Diplomat at that time was part of the catalyst, I think, that started to accelerate Diplomat.
Failure is something where in my own life that held me back a lot of times. Fear of failure.
Yeah.
Fear. I didn't even want to make a move because I was so afraid of failure. We kind of talked about a little bit, the working for yourself, and it's nice that you always had that. You had the idea right away, that the pharmacy. That's something that sounds like a huge blessing.
Well, and I think I have to give credit to my folks because, again, if I did something wrong at home, I got punished like any kid did and like I probably should have. But I don't know that my parents ever made me feel like if I made a mistake, I wasn't capable, right? They basically said if you make a mistake, you gotta do better, right? But they always made me feel like I could. And I hope if there's one thing I can kind of teach to my kids, it's not just about having a good work ethic, it's about working through the things you do wrong and not carrying too much of that with you.
Which is what we talked about when earlier when the live stream froze. And this has been for me a huge learning experience because I've always worked for somebody. Yeah. I've always worked for somebody, and I always really did the job I had to do. I never made the choice, well, I'm going to do this because I like this, or I said, I have a child I have to raise. Yeah. This is my job, and I will, I'll do this. And I come from the old school, you're not supposed to like your job. You're not supposed to enjoy your job. Yeah. You just do your job, you provide for your family, and then, you retire and hopefully ride out into the sunset. But it's like when I got here and you showed me around this, it's just amazing. This it's so beautiful up here. But you got out of Diplomat. Now, are you still involved at all with Diplomat?
No, Diplomat, I was on the board of directors after I retired from Diplomat, but Diplomat was sold almost a year ago now to, a Fortune 25 healthcare company in the United States. And so at that point, the entire board and everything was done. And so I just kind of moved on. But when I left Diplomat at the very start of 2018, in terms of being any active role, I didn't have one. I was just one of a member of the board of directors. And I just, put my time and heart and soul in these two buildings here. We already had the Dryden building running. We had the Ferris wheel up and running, and it was in its early days. And I had plenty of opportunities and plenty of work to do here, and I just immersed myself in that.
Do you inherently do things that do you always have to be productive? Is there wasted time? Do you watch TV?
Sometimes, yeah. That's an interesting, as I've gotten a little bit older, my mind, maybe it needs a little more reset time, and I can sit and watch a little bit of mindless TV and everything, but what I do need to be, I don't need to be productive 24/7 a day, but what I do need to do is I do need to feel like I made a difference, right? And the beauty for me is I can do that. You can make a difference in a minute if you help a child, or in an hour if you do a project, or in an 8-hour day's work, right? So my satisfaction doesn't come from necessarily being active 24/7. It comes more from at the end of a day feeling like, did I make a difference? Did I leave the world in a good place and that? And if I take some downtime in between that, I'm okay with that.
Now, Marcus and I speak of this quite a bit because we both do. Do you have a routine in the morning? Do you have a morning routine, or are you just able to get up and kind of?
I don't really have a morning routine. I'm not a real regimented person. I always, say people tell me I was successful by surrounding myself with people smarter than me. Some people told me it was easy to do. Not sure they meant that, but the point is that, I've surrounded myself with a lot of good people, and now I'm in a time and place where I've got a little more flexibility. If I could act more like a college kid than you. Like, I know you're an early bird, right? You get up early every day.
Same here. My alarm goes off at 5:30.
Yeah, and I could sleep until 9 a.m. every morning and work until midnight, right? I could work until midnight or 1 a.m. or 3 a.m. at my desk. And, it used to be in my Diplomat days, at least one night a week, I was there till well after midnight. That was my time that I could my mind was rocking. And yet if I need to, there was a period of 2 years at Diplomat where we were doing some unique building, and I was there at 5:30 every morning. I guess I'm kind of wired to do what it takes to get done what I want to get done.
That's almost like a military attitude.
A little bit, yeah.
In the military, you just do what you have to do when you're supposed to do it. You get up. If you've got to get up at 4, you're up at 4.
Yeah.
You just do whatever it takes to get the job done.
Yeah, and more than anything, I think that you and I were talking just a few minutes ago about what are some markers of success. I think more than anything, that's one of them. You just have to acknowledge that it's got to get done. It may not be fun. It may not be easy, but you got to do it, and you got to do the best you can at it. And if you have to get up every day at 5:30 in the morning for a year to do it, and you're willing to do it, you will be successful, right? At something, right? You will be successful. And the more you're not willing to do what your heart tells you needs to be done, the less likely you are to accelerate your success. At least that's the way I always looked at it.
Yeah. It's absolutely correct, because, our conversations what we have mapped out and what we plan, independently and together, with even this project, it's the same type of, process. And, it goes back to, our first conversation that we had on the podcast here about, what's important and what isn't important. So the importance of, making those sacrifices always outweighs, the portion of, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. Well, if you want to get from point A to point B, you're going to have to, suck it up and make it happen. So, yeah.
That's 100%. And honestly, for this, when I started doing this was something I started doing, the music at home because of COVID. Yeah. And I was like, man, I love this. Yeah. And it's not about the money. And I do believe that the money will come with this as this grows and stuff. How important was the money to you versus just you love doing the job? Because, medical field, pharmacy, a lot of people, they get into that strictly for the money.
Sure. Yeah, I think the money to me has always been kind of the net result of hard work. To me, the money, there's parts of the money that's it's an affirmation that you did something that maybe others didn't do. But for me, it was never about how much money can I make or how much money can I do. It was more about, can I make a difference? Can I do good work? At Diplomat, I never thought a lot about how much money I made, but I thought a lot about the sales in the company. Because if I was growing and selling, and my business was growing faster than my peers, that means I was performing well, or I was outperforming. It's always been exciting for me to be able to outperform my industry. And as you start outperforming, theoretically, and in most cases, the money comes. For me, it was always about what can I accomplish, and then once you start accomplishing things, you don't have to think about the money because it follows it, right? It was never about how much is the money, it was about how much have I been able to do.
So are you a competitive, it sounds to me like you're a competitive person then.
Yeah, I am pretty competitive. I'm competitive kind of in general. Like I was a solid high school athlete, called a jack of all trades. I was never a star in any sport,
What school did you go to?
I went to Lake Fenton.
Okay.
And I had some success in track. That was the one sport I probably did a little
better. Is that where you grew up, in Fenton?
In Lake Fenton.
In Lake Fenton?
Fenton, Lake Fenton, we were the kind of country boys, right?
Yeah.
Fenton were the cool kids, and we were the country boys
I
that
think
lived out there.
Fenton was country till just recently.
Well, yeah, but back in the day, they thought they were pretty cool. And by the way, I love Fenton. So,
Fenton is,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
another place where you had your hand in there because, I've played the Fenton Hotel forever.
Yeah.
And, well, not forever, because that place has been there forever.
Yeah, forever.
But, were you there, was the Red Fox there prior to the fire hall?
No, the Red Fox was the old granary, the old bean elevator.
I remember, it's so funny to see the growth
Right.
that you've
Yeah.
had your hands in there
Yep.
even, because I would go to the Fenton old granary, I'd look at it and go, man, that thing is old, and then all of a sudden it was this beautiful building.
Yeah, and then we renovated it and changed it around, and that was exciting. And Fenton has been a great place for me to grow up. My parents met there, both grew up there, both went to high school in Fenton, and so I grew up on Lake Fenton, went to Lake Fenton schools, but when I was an adult and had children and family, we were in Fenton, and so my kids went to Fenton schools, the later kids went to Powers, but Fenton was a great place for me to grow up, and so it's been fun to be able to be involved in some projects in Fenton, like the Red Fox.
But Fenton, when, like me growing up in Clarkston technically isn't really close to anything. It's not like a suburb. Fenton is close here. Clarkston is a suburb of Auburn Hills at this point.
Yeah, there you go, yeah. Fenton was definitely a suburb of Flint in its early days. And back then, they used to call cities like Fenton a bedroom community, right? Because the people that worked in Flint slept in Fenton, right? They worked here and they had homes out in the Fenton area. And as, Fenton grew up a little more, it became more of a destination. More people that moved out of Detroit and maybe moved down from Ann Arbor also came to Fenton. And then as Flint started to struggle, Fenton lost its ties to the city, right? Which again is part why I'm excited about things like the Capitol Theater. I have friends of mine that have gone to concerts at the Capitol Theater when it was back and running that had not been in Flint for 20 years. And the Capitol brought them downtown. That's exciting.
The Capitol is one of the more exciting buildings, because we were talking about it, we had a few conversations at the Fenton Hotel about the Capitol Theater and the renovation of that, and it's looking forward to seeing more concerts there.
Yeah, we'll get it back. I mean, they had a really robust schedule plan when COVID hit, and I have great confidence in the leadership there. And when they get, past this opportunity where we can put people in theater seats like that downtown safely, we'll be back. I can't wait.
Absolutely.
Well, the other thing is the hotel's a game changer down here. To me, the hotel is a massive game changer. To me, to see that, because I do have people who come to see me and they say, well, where can I stay?
Yeah.
I say, Grand Blanc. But now I've already had people come and stay there during COVID. It's to me, it's an amazing place. It'll be really nice when that rooftop bar opens.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
But we feel the same way. At Diplomat, we used to do a lot of business tourism. On any given day, I sometimes had 10 or 20 people from around the country that had different sets of meetings. And you're right, they stayed on Hill Road or they stayed in Grand Blanc. But once the restaurants downtown started getting strong, your Cork and 501 and Tenacity's there and everything, we started moving our business dinner plans downtown Flint. It was so exciting to look out over the bricks and look out over the lights and stuff.
Yeah.
And now with the hotel, now it's a combination. Now they can stay down here, they can eat down here, and when the Capitol gets back live and there's a great concert, a guy like J.J. Gray, somebody might come from 50 miles away and get a room downtown, because he couldn't do that before.
And even since on here, I've seen people make comments who have come down here that would have never driven to Flint. I have people who drive from Detroit who come here to watch. I've had people come from the west side of the state, and they're blown away because what they see doesn't match
what they hear. Yeah.
That's right. My brother, who listens to live music in Grand Rapids all the time and is, again, a giant fan of J.J. Gray, I didn't even know. He said, hey, one of my favorite musicians is going to be at your little city of Flint, Michigan at the Capitol Theater. You want to go with me? I go, heck yeah. Right? And he hadn't been down from Flint in a long time, and him and his wife and some friends from Grand Rapids did just like you said, came down here. Now, stayed at my house because I lived around the corner, but if I hadn't and the hotel was open, we'd have had more people coming downtown from Grand Rapids.
Yeah. It's so do you have, now because you've had your fingers in this, is there a point where you, on a certain level, because you talked about delegation and stuff, is there a point where you feel like I did this? Like, is there I'm such a part of this, like we're almost like a pride and ego thing that you may struggle with on any level? Because we talk about ego a lot. And
And we have too, and I know you pretty well, and you're a guy of tremendous substance with a lot of experience and a lot of great work skills and talent, and yet your ego doesn't come out when we're talking as friends.
No,
right?
No.
You're driven to do good things for other people before you are pat your own back.
Yeah, and I don't want to jump ahead and answer for him, but ego and Phil, no.
I've never seen that. That's what I'm saying. You were so unassuming. I was like, who was this homeless guy, and how did he tip us so well?
I remember giving you a good tip that night.
And you came back a few times, but that was, and one of the things that we talked about is I told you, the look on your face when I said, I moved to Clarkson from Flint, even you were like, why?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Why? Why'd you do that? I'm like, I love it. And you're like, I love that.
Yeah. I think ego's interesting because I've never really articulated this before, but I think ego can be can be internal and external, right? And an internal ego is not a bad thing if it drives you to make a difference and drives you to do good things because you're telling yourself you need to either arise to a certain level or you need to make a commitment or a difference or something. Because one thing, when ego gets external and people start hearing you talk about the things that you've done, it becomes a negative, right? And I think the most substantial people that I know. We all have our benefits, we all have our faults, but that's not one of them. And I guess if again, I could articulate with my father, who was successful, my mother, who did a lot of great things, is I never felt them, I never saw them patting their own back, right? Mm-hmm. If they make a difference, other people pat yours. You don't need to pat yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's what an ego does.
That's always, even with doing this, like this doesn't work without the input of my daughter who does all the graphics.
Yeah.
It's like without the team, we're really nothing. No man is an island. We can't do this alone.
Diplomat was an incredible success story over a period of time. I mean, we took a company from $25 or $35 million to $4 billion in sales in 12 years. Man, that didn't happen by one person, right? That was a whole team of people. And as the company got bigger, there was another layer of people. And as the company got bigger, there was another layer of people. And for me to ever sit back and try and take credit for that kind of ride on my own would be terrible, because I would kind of disavow hundreds and at some point almost seemed like thousands of people that added their share of work. Mm-hmm. So Flint, I've loved the involvement I've had in here, but I'm still a little bit of a newcomer. They're a core group of people, men and women in Flint, Michigan, from the late 90s to the 2010 or 12. Before I got involved, they kept the lights on, right? They set the stage here. You know who those people are, right?
Yeah, that's how I feel about here. I'm honestly, I feel like I'm just carrying water for the people that have been here and stuck it out.
And you might be able to carry a lot of water over a period of time, and if this venue gives an opportunity to make a bigger difference, that's fantastic. That's Diplomat and some of the benefits that it brought, and some of the success that was articulated over time gave me a chance to carry a little bit more water for people. Mm-hmm. But I was still serving the people that kept the lights on during that period of time. And for me, I hope to do that. And at some point in the future, you guys are both a lot younger than I am. I think you win the prize at the table.
Young man.
Yeah, but the point is, you got a lot of years to do that, right?
Yeah.
And you can't wait.
Yeah. And I can say that a lot of the reason why that I've chosen to stay here is because all the stories that my father would tell me about how he came here and went to GMI and became a tool and die maker at Chevy in the Hole, and he made the choice to stay here in Flint. Then I would listen to my godfather Larry Moon and his investment here in Flint. Phil Schultz, Dr. McCumla, Ghassan Saab, just all of these great men and women that put in tears and equity into this area back in the late 90s.
You bet.
When no one would even think twice about Perry Drugs turning into Elgar Credit Union.
Yeah.
Or an old Dryden building being, really the crown jewel of downtown, and Ferris Wheel building and Blackstones and all of these different venues that we have now. And the ridicule and, the side eyes that these folks took to then give us the same opportunity, and Phil also giving us the opportunity to be here and, help our kids be, those next set of game changers for the area. So, kudos to everyone.
Yeah, that go ahead, you were going to say.
No, it's exciting to see that. And again, I feel the same way. Anything that I get to accomplish in this city, maybe over the past 5 to 10 years and in the next 5 to 10 years, is going to create opportunities for the next group of people to continue that and better it. And there's nothing better than watching other people. It's like a track record in high school, right? When you set it, all you do is hope that the people that are behind you can improve and get better and grow.
Because we've talked about this in private more so than anything, but there are a lot of parents who their ego they don't want their kids to do better than them. They don't want, it's a sad day, when your kid can beat you up. When you realize, okay, yeah. I'm just saying, I do know people that are like that, and so that kind of leads me to, so how do you handle it in a sense when people celebrate you failing?
Yeah, I'm gonna answer that in a second, but you said something earlier. I got to tell just a really quick story about beating my father in a foot race. I was 14 years old, and we were on our way to a family ski trip out in Vermont. And we'd had breakfast one morning. We'd driven all night. We had breakfast one morning. We're 2 hours from the ski area, and the car was across the parking lot. And Dad looked over at me, and I looked over at him. I don't know why, but there was a little something here. We're gonna have a race, right? And we raced across the parking lot, and for the first time in my life, I beat my father, right? And it wasn't like he was a speed demon or I was, but I was 14 and started to feel my oats.
Yeah.
My dad stopped and looked at me, and he was shocked, right? But not once did he make me feel like he was mad, right? Mm-hmm. He's like, my son just beat me in a foot race. Mm-hmm. And I think from that, you realize that you are going to pass that down. But I guess, again, I just get back to, I was blessed to be in an environment where my parents would embrace that. Mm-hmm. And so, going back on that point about failure and stuff, and maybe I learned some of that from lessons like that, I don't spend a lot of time at it. There are people that want you to fail, right? There are people that, are unhappy with their own lives, and if they can beat down the life around them, then maybe that makes them feel better. I don't want to speak about any person or any idea like that, but the reality is, if you've got the right background and if you have the right support throughout your life, I don't think about that much, right? I can't, one thing I did learn, and I learned this in college, is I can't please all the people. From a simple role of being officer, I thought I was going to step up and be the president of my fraternity, and I was going to make 60 guys happy. You know what I found out in the first 2 weeks? If I tried to make all 60 of those guys happy, I would compromise every ethic I had, right? Mm-hmm. I couldn't make 60 young men who thought 60 different ways all happy. So I learned that I had to live with what I believed in, listen to the good people around me, and find a path to do what I thought was best, and not worry quite so much about making everybody happy. And that helped me, I think, maybe over my life, worry less about the people that didn't want to follow me or didn't believe in me or had a contrary opinion. Doesn't make them, it doesn't make me smarter than them, but it made me understand that I can't serve all of them. And I was okay with that.
So another aspect, because so much of what you talk about is, what I gather is delegation, leadership. With leadership and that responsibility comes, obviously, you're hiring, but you also have to fire.
Yeah.
And have you ever not fired anybody because you felt more responsible to them than your company.
Yes, and I will tell you what happened over a period of time. I came to understand how challenging and in some ways damaging that was. Again, there's a saying about somebody, they're just good enough not to fire, right? They're not really performing very well. People around them aren't really happy. They're not meeting your expectations. Maybe they fail you a little bit, maybe they fail a lot, but it's hard to fire people, especially when you care about them. Mm-hmm. And so for at least the first half of my career, probably the first 3/4 of my career, I fired really slowly. Now, I'm not saying that's bad, and I'm probably going to continue that.
You ghosted them? Is that what you're telling me?
No, by fired slowly, that means I put up with a lot of things that I would have wished I'd fired. But you know what happened? You know what I learned? The book, Good to Great, helped me understand this. You know what I learned?
That's the name of the book, Good to Great?
The name of the book was Good to Great, and it's a pretty famous business book. But I learned that when I finally fired that person that was just good enough not to fire, and I was so worried that all the people that work with them were going to be unhappy with me because I fired them, you know what most of them said? What took you so long, mm-hmm. Right? I've been doing that guy's job or that girl's job for a year. That person's been stealing from me. This person's doing this, that person's doing that. By the time I sometimes early in my career got comfortable enough to fire somebody, the people around me were wondering why I was waiting because they weren't happy with their coworkers. Mm-hmm. And I came to, in the book Good to Great is kind of shares with you that sometimes good or good enough or just good enough is the enemy of great. Because if somebody is just barely good enough to do their job, they are not serving their coworkers or their company. And I learned that later in my career. I was probably in my 50s when I learned that, maybe my early 50s when I learned that lesson.
So last year.
Yeah. last decade at least. But that was a pretty powerful lesson for me. And it actually was part of the transformation of helping to make Diplomat better. Mm-hmm. I thought we were really good, and we were doing a lot of good things, but we weren't great in some areas. And when I really got down to it and mm-hmm. understood it, you have to admit that, mm-hmm. right? We could be better.
Now this is more of a broad question, but with the pharmaceutical industry under attack in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. Did you feel any of that? I mean, because you weren't a drug company. Right. You didn't make drugs.
We didn't manufacture the drugs. We dispensed them.
So did you ever have to deal with that on any level?
Tremendous amount of time we had to deal with that. There was a time in the 2016 election, before when Hillary was out there again. It's no comment to Hillary, but she tweeted about the terrible cost of drugs in healthcare, mm-hmm. and across the entire pharmaceutical industry, there was about $200 billion worth of value dropped overnight mm-hmm. Because of a tweet. And the thought was, if we're going to have somebody who becomes president who has some concerns about that, then that's going to be a challenge for drug companies mm-hmm. in the market. And at that point, I was a public CEO. Right? I was running a public company, and so we were certainly affected by that. And I will tell you, the cost of drugs in our industry is challenging. Healthcare in the United States is broken, right? Mm-hmm. I think we all recognize that. There are some great things about it. We do some really great things in our country, but overall, we have a lot of challenges in healthcare. And so, we had to deal with that a lot at Diplomat. We were dispensing drugs, and I can understand it. I mean, we were dispensing drugs for cancer patients that were $10,000 a month. Yeah. Now, those drugs would cost me $9,800 to buy, and I might make $200 on dispensing it. So we weren't making a lot of money on those drugs, but that doesn't change the fact that somebody's got to figure out how to pay for a $10,000 therapy, either an insurance company or something. So there were lots of challenges around that part of the industry, but at the end of the day, Diplomat in the pharmacy business is a service. We're a service business, right? And I felt like if we could do the best job we could in servicing people, then we would sleep great every single night knowing we did the best we could with what we were doing for people. Yeah. And that was kind of how we did it.
So you were able to kind of parse that in a sense that didn't weigh on you.
No.
You didn't feel, I mean, when you would, like you said, a cancer patient who has a $10,000 a bill a month, that you were able to kind of compartmentalize that to say, because you're only doing what you can. Right. You can't give it away.
But I'll share, I actually, I probably had some learnings from, I think back to a business class that I took at one time, and one of the kind of concepts they taught you is if your goal in life is to feed the world and have no one hungry, and that's the only goal you have in life, you will never be satisfied, right? Because nobody can feed the world and make sure that nobody is going to, that there's not a single person that doesn't go hungry. So if that is your ultimate goal and that is the only goal that satisfies you, then you're in trouble, right? Because your life is going to be really hard. But if your goal is to change hunger in a way that you can, and you can help a soup kitchen in your corner, and you can feed 25 people in a night, then you should be able to go home happier than you started the day because you made a difference for those 25. So the way I looked at that is, to your point, what can I do to make a difference? And can I do the best I can with what I can do? And if I can do that, I go to sleep really, really well at night. And I think that's not, the idea behind that isn't to have small goals, but part of it is, one of my favorite sayings is be a small entrepreneur, right? That sounds contradictory, because being an entrepreneur, entrepreneurs are supposed to be big, bold, whatever. But if you're a small entrepreneur, that means you make small, you make small bets and small differences, and you try and be successful in those. And if you're a small entrepreneur over and over and over, you'll make a difference in life. And so I looked at that in terms of, in the pharmacy business. Can I do good things with what I can do? Can I take a cancer patient and give him better care than we've gotten before? Even though I can't pay for his medication, but I can make sure that medication has the best chance to cure his cancer.
Yeah, that's well said, because one of the things that I kind of talk about a lot is I always say, put your shopping carts away. That's just start there. Just start there. Just because that's the one thing I like. Aldi, for instance, Aldi versus everywhere else. I see just the kindness at Aldi, because it's, instead of I'm just going to leave my shopping cart here, everybody is like, hey, here, take my shopping cart. There's already a quarter in it, and it kind of creates this culture of giving, as opposed to it's about me. And that's where I think, like you said, it's easy. I like to be here, and when I tell people about here, and people like Marcus knows, it's easy to make a difference here. It really is easy to make a difference in Flint.
You're fostering a true village mentality. It's just not one person. It's one person that helps another person, that person helps another person, and then it goes on from there, and it's a domino effect. And, I mean, it's just something that we see on a daily basis between, the folks that we have a chance to interact with. And, it sounds easier than it would be to accomplish sometimes, but it's just those little small baby steps, and that's it. Well, and I think this is a community we talk about. It's got a lot of heart and soul. It's got a lot of grit. It's been beaten down a lot of times. And the core people in this community, Marcus, we know them. We see them out when we're out and about every day. They kind of don't take no for an answer. Maybe it's no today, but tomorrow, it's a yes. And I think they keep pushing forward. And I think that kind of mentality appreciates that kind of, it takes a village support too, right? They know that, they're going to wake up tomorrow and they're going to fight the good fight again. And if somebody will help them fight the good fight, they'll embrace that, and they'll be thankful for that. And I think there's a lot of caring in this community. And again, we talked about it earlier. My business, I grew up close to Flint, with Flint being my main anchor city. My business for most of my years in Diplomat was in Flint Township, right around the corner from the city. It was only 2010 that I actually moved the business downtown. And that's really when the downtown hit me between the eyes, right? The city, responded and embraced Diplomat's ability to hire people. When we were trying to make a difference and do a few things downtown, it was like, okay, there's a good story brewing here. How can we help it? Right? Other people didn't let their ego get in the way and say, Diplomat's a new good story, let's steal that thunder. People said, Diplomat's a new good story. Healthcare is coming to Flint, Michigan as a business. How can we help that? And that really, empowered me to want to do more.
You know, you do good things, nobody notices. It's kind of a little harder the next day to get up and do them, right? You do good things and people notice, you want to do more.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And the city noticed, and the city embraced it, and we just wanted to, you know, kind of keep filling that gap.
And one last question here, and then we can get going. But now, would you consider yourself a natural optimist? Do you when you see the problem, do you see a bright side that comes out of a problem generally?
Yeah, sometimes, I wouldn't call it my downfall, but we joke a little bit. You know, they say the glass is half full or the glass is half empty. To me, the glass is always half full and it's always champagne.
Yeah.
That's just how I look at it. And again, it's not, I don't always think that I'm the smartest guy in the room and I can solve the problem. But I believe in all my heart that there's a smart guy in the room that can solve the problem. And if I can find that person or work with that person or piggyback off that person,
I love that.
There's a path,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah,
so
I love
that's
that.
the stuff. So I'm a natural optimist. I always am. You know, you know, the Steve Jobs book. There was there was a saying about Steve Jobs. He lived in a reality distortion zone, right? His reality was distorted for the belief that he had in what he could accomplish. And, you know, Jobs was probably good and bad about a lot of things, but he was one intensely driven person to make changes that would be beneficial. And he lived in his own world. I don't live in a reality distortion zone, but I sometimes look at the brighter side, far brighter than current, and just think, how do you get there, right? Sometimes
Yeah.
you succeed, sometimes you don't. How do we get to the brighter side?
You were going to say something that looked like you were ready.
No, he took it.
That's where, you know, like, for this, you know, it's like, Marcus and I are better together
Yeah.
doing this than
Yep.
each of us doing this independently. To hear you know, your delegation and finding, you know, the people that you can say, hey, this is my vision. Do you think that would have been harder for you to do if you hadn't had the success with Diplomat, or were you always able to sell your vision to somebody?
I've always been a pretty good Pied Piper, I think, in terms of believing in what I would do and hoping that people would follow. I didn't do it because, I guess I will say this. When I was in high school and I was in college, I'm not sure that I started out as a natural-born leader. Some people say some people are natural-born leaders. I don't think I was one. I think I just worked pretty hard, and if I found that people would follow me because I was working pretty hard, that empowered me to work a little bit harder. I didn't hold offices in high school. Some people start out and they're, you know, the president of the middle school class, right? I didn't do any of that stuff in high school. It was only in college that I started to get more involved in leading. I remember the very first time I was in a fraternity, the very first time I had to give a speech, a 10-minute speech about an award that we were giving to another fraternity. And I agonized for days, maybe weeks, over this 10-minute speech I had to give. And when I got it done, I was like, whew, that wasn't so bad. I kind of liked it. And over time, I got a little better at that. And I realized, you know what? I can articulate what I want to say. And I guess at the end of the day, if you believe in what you're doing and you're passionate about it, and you're doing the right thing, people will follow you.
Yep.
And if you're not, they won't.
Yep.
And that's okay.
And it's one of the phrases that stuck with me, because I was a mess growing up. I had no self-confidence. I was a shell. And
look at you now.
Look at me.
You know?
Specimen.
We've talked about you have several mentors, you know, and how important that is to have a mentor. You had your dad.
Yeah.
You had somebody that was there to say, hey, well, this is how, you know, and so I started surrounding myself with virtual mentors.
Yeah,
because
good.
that's the beauty of online now.
Sure.
You can find somebody that'll tell you every morning, say, hey, buddy, you can do it, pal.
Yeah,
Give you
there
a
you
little,
go. Right.
soft nudge on the chin, but
There you
you know,
go.
but the thing that has been the game changer for me is my passion lining up with my purpose.
Yep.
And I feel like
That's when magic happens, right?
that is where, like you said, you know, earlier, if somebody would have told you, you know, when you were 18 that you were going to make X amount of dollars doing this kind of job, if somebody would have told me 6 years ago that I'd be sitting here in the Dryden with two you know, successful guys, doing something like this, I would have never believed it. In Flint, I would have never, ever. The first time I came to Flint, I played the Metropolis, and somebody stole my guitar. So and I was like, I'm never going back there. And now it's. I'm like, am I ever going to leave? I don't know.
It's interesting. One of the things you said earlier, because you said something that made me think about it, is that kind of what are those traits that really kind of make a difference? And I think more than anything, it's not necessarily, again, being the smartest guy in the room, but it's having an open mind to let good ideas come in and take root. And if you've got the willingness to have an open mind, that your point, passion and purpose. If you've got an open mind and you're looking for opportunities to make a difference, then passion and purpose don't have to happen when you're 20 years old or 30 years old or 40 years old. They can happen at 60 years old, right? Most successful people in the world, I think, and this is financial, and I'm not tying success necessarily just financial, but I think the statistics, right? Buffett, I think, made his first $1 million, or his first billion, at 60. Right, and then from then it went, right, he wasn't done, right? You have an open mind, you combine passion and purpose, and then those things can take place at any time in any place in your life. Financial success can come late, personal success, success with your kids. It doesn't all have to happen across the lifetime. It happens when passion and purpose cross each other, right? And people have to be open-minded and willing to let that happen, and then willing to embrace it.
And that was the other thing when you were showing me around, and I'm like, it's I hear people say, "Oh, retirement suits me well," and I'm looking at you at a 40-year-old man and who's retired and
40-year-old man a lot of years ago.
But it's like I would imagine you're never going to retire.
Well, I'm never gonna sit on the shelf and kind of wither away.
You're not gonna stay. A body at rest stays at rest and dies.
I'm an avid snow skier. I've got goals this year. I'm gonna pick one day this year. I'm gonna ski more vertical this year than I ever have in my 20s, 30s, 40s, or 50s. I'm in good enough shape to do it. I've got a mindset to do it. I think the combination is balancing, your desire to make a difference with the ability to enjoy life. And I've also got, 8 3/4 grandchildren. I got my 8th grandchild is due any day now. And, for me, it's not necessarily about accomplishing something in business. It's also about flying a kite with them on the beach, right? And that can be as motivating for me as a successful win in a business.
Yeah. Now, do you have a health regimen? Do you work out regularly?
We're working on that.
My muse here, Marcus, is telling me how I need to, But the reality is I don't have a regimen, but I have enough kind of stay with it that I keep myself in decent shape, and it could be better, right? I've got certain sports that I love. I love water sports. I love snow skiing. Those sports themselves keep me in reasonable shape. My buddy Marcus is going to help me understand how to take a little bit care of my. Part of what I love about him is kind of mind, body, spirit, right? It's not just that he's kind of could kick my butt in a number of ways physically, but he's also got kind of the mind and the spirit thing going too.
But that's where, for us, that's where we've connected, because we talk about things, normalizing certain things, and Marcus is probably a kindred spirit in the sense that two guys that'll say, "Hey man, how you doing today? How you doing today? You doing all right?" And I appreciate that about him, because we had an immediate bond of friendship. It was immediate. It was right out of the gate, and I admire him. I respect him. I want to be around people like him, like you. I want to be the dumbest guy in the room.
Yeah, that's a great place to be, by the way, right? Because you surround yourself with people that are, more passionate about work, more knowledgeable about something, better athletes, stronger. If I'm an avid snow skier, nothing more exciting for me than skiing with the best guy on the mountain that day, because I'll learn something, right? Yeah. If your mind is open, then you can learn from everybody.
But again, coming from a family that, where self-worth is valued, you're not going to go into that room and go, "Man, I'm a piece of shit."
No.
You're going to go, "I'm in the room."
Yeah.
And they haven't kicked me out yet, so I may as well learn something from these dudes.
Absolutely.
You know, and that's why I love this. I love, like I said, sitting here in the boardroom with a Dryden with in this situation. I can't, dude. I can't thank you enough, man.
Well,
I can't
Jason,
thank
thanks.
you for what you do for Flint, what you've done for me, personally. You know, maybe indirectly that you don't notice to see the way the people admire you enough to take the wallpaper off the wall and make a vest out of it. You know,
That was a fun story.
yeah, but you want to tell what they did, because that was, or I could tell it if you.
Sure, you can go.
Well, at the Ferris wheel, they had the old wallpaper.
Yeah,
and it
yeah, it was
had
old fabric. Yeah, it was fabric.
And that was the thing. I remember they
From
made
the 30s.
yeah, and they made a vest out of it.
Yeah.
A vest.
cool.
Yeah, so cool.
Yeah.
It's just, and to see the people, they love you, man. It's great.
Yeah.
Well, I've been surrounded again by really good people, and if you give people a platform to be able to grow and expand on themselves, you know, they just, you know, they enrich your own life, right? You know, you
Yeah.
give, you get back. So
Yeah.
I'm in a good spot, and it's a great place to be. And I, you know, again, I always keep learning too. I got lots to learn and lots to do.
You know what? Learning is the fountain of youth.
Yep, you bet.
Once you think you know it all, where do you go?
Well, I don't know that, but I will tell you this. The more successful I got at Diplomat, and the more I surrounded myself with really smart people, the more I understood how big the world was, right?
Isn't that crazy?
When I was young, maybe I thought I was fairly smart, and as I got older, I realized there's an unbelievable number of layers of people out there, all with skills, and some of them are smart from an IQ point of view, and some of them are smart from a street smart point of view, and some of them are smart from a marketing point of view. But man, there's a lot of layers out there, and it's fun to watch them.
Yeah. Well, we're going to close out here. You want to close us out, Marcus?
Yeah, I would do that. Gentlemen, I appreciate both of you. Phil, thank you so much for making me a part of the family. To,
Love it, buddy. Love the time together.
Yeah, man, love you, man. And Jason, you know, I love you too, bud. And folks, make sure you stay as safe as possible tonight and tomorrow, because the snow it's a-coming.
On its way.
Yeah, it's
At least
on its
here
way.
in the
Yeah.
mitten.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at least here in the mitten. And, you know, once again, thank you to letting us, you know, spend some time here in the Dryden building. And, you know, we appreciate the Ferris, and we appreciate, you know, all the folks that support us on Monday nights.
Yeah. And if you can, you know, share this video if you can. Recommend we discuss to all your friends and people who like cool things, because I'm telling you what, Marcus and I are really cool.
I won't hang with you guys. It doesn't happen to me that often unless I get to hang with you two, so thanks for that.
Awesome. All right, everybody, thank you so much. Thanks, Phil.
Yeah, thank you.